Good morning and welcome. Tom Morelli here with Wilqo, and I'm joined by our head of compliance, John Haring. John, there was some big announcements in the news today. What did you do? Tell everyone.
I was going to say, what you mean about the Eagles?
Yeah, about the Eagles.
That,
That's
that
what we're
that's
here to
that that
talk about.
that's it, right? That's the only thing that happened this weekend. No, thanks, Tom. We are in strange and unprecedented times. I'll put it that way. What you're referring to, obviously, is the announcement over the weekend that the president and the DOGE or Doge has decided to shut down the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And in fact, their website, last I checked, was down and giving a 404 error, um, which obviously is probably going to be challenged in court. You know, Congress established the CFPB for a reason, um, and I think that to me is the big takeaway. Even if the CFPB is unfunded, told, employees are told, hey, don't work, don't change any rules, don't do any examinations. It doesn't change the fact that the rules are still on the books.
Yeah, absolutely.
And every state, in one way, shape, or form or another, has something in their rules that say a violation of federal law is a violation of state law.
Hmm.
So, really, what this does is it kind of returns us to the day when, kind of each supervisor, whether it's a depository supervisor like FDIC or the Fed or National Association of Credit Unions, is forced with doing their own interpretations of what the existing rules are. They're going to do enforcements on their own independently.
This somewhat, we can call it going backwards for the sake of this conversation. When was the last time we were operating in this type of environment?
CFPB was enacted, it went into effect in 2010. And it was obviously in response to the financial crisis of 2007.
Hmm.
And
So really, you're looking at more, it's been more than a decade since we've been in this type of
oh,
territory.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, I get it. There's going to be opinions of every flavor on this. You're going to have some people excited about this, especially if you've ever been on the receiving end of, a CFPB lawsuit. Um, there's going to be people that kind of see this for what this is, as far as creating a vacuum within the mortgage industry, and
Hmm.
nature abhors a vacuum.
Sure.
Someone somewhere, whether it's your investors, your agencies, or your states, are going to step in to fill that void. And life may not actually be better in that
Sure.
context for you than it was when there was sort of that one unifying federal voice.
From everything that you've said, it's keep your foot on the gas. Just because there's news afoot, that doesn't mean you should stop doing the things you are doing because just because the lights are dark doesn't mean that someone
Yeah.
isn't still watching and everything is still in play from the state standpoint. Is that correct?
And agencies and
Yeah.
investors, absolutely. And I've mentioned this before when we've talked before. The nature of regulatory compliance is you're normally looking back at activity
Yeah.
done, over the last few years. Every reg has its own statute of limitations, and they're greater than 3 to 4 years. So um, this would be a mistake to think that we're now in the wild wild west and everything just goes back to pre 2007. Do what you
Yeah.
want to do.
Hmm.
There certainly will be something that happens in the future.
Sure.
um the other thing that's a little interesting for me about the bureau is they're actually a little more popular with consumers than with industry.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of consumers have been the beneficiary of refunds or disgorgements after the Bureau came in and cited a lender and said, you need to do something to make this consumer whole.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the average consumer stays good with this, or do they start calling their representatives and going, well, I, I understand finding fraud and finding waste. This is an agency that gave money back to consumers way more than it cost by way of taxes
Sure.
to run the agency. You know, there actually is some kind of an output on the other end that goes back to consumers.
Yeah.
Um, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But in the meantime, like you said, keep your foot on the pedal. Don't don't This is not the time to say, okay, I can let my guard down, I can cut my corners, I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
um, because again, whether it's the states, it's agencies, there are still people looking at this and wanting to make sure that you're
Sure.
complying with the regs on the books.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that a handful of years down the road, people won't look back at this time period and see how you acted.
Absolutely right.
Excellent. Well, John, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat this morning. We'll be in touch as more things develop and we hear more things from the rest of the industry. But as always, it's a pleasure. Have a great
Thanks,
one.
Tom. Appreciate you.
Take care.